My name is Brian. I'm 47 years old. I'm a self-proclaimed nerd with a affinity for geek culture. I, however, love to travel. I love to try new things, immerse myself in different kinds of knowledge. And I've been ghosted before, but this is my current story. I had just recently gotten divorced, but prior to that, I had been separated from my then wife for 3 years. We went through a process of trying to reconcile, trying to work on things, but ultimately that failed. When we realized it failed, we filed. And at that time, after being lonely and wanting to connect with someone, I reached out. I downloaded the apps, Tinder and Bumble, and posted a couple ads on Reddit. I did have an experience where I met a gal. We seemed to have a bit of chemistry online, but when we met, there wasn't that much chemistry there. She ended up ghosting me, but I wasn't too broken up about it because, like I said, the chemistry wasn't there. But a couple months later, after the divorce was finalized, I put myself out there again. And I posted an ad on Reddit, and I got a few pulls from it, but one responder had really come across and stood out. She had put a lot of thoughtful effort into her response, and looks like she, you know, was like myself, putting herself out there. We started to chat, and it seemed to go very well. Before I knew it, we had exchanged numbers and pics, and things had started to look like they were headed in a good direction. Well, when she reached out, she obviously explained the challenges she was going to, and I quickly realized that she is currently in a situation where I was in about 3 years ago. We found we had a ton in common, from our political stances to our place in the world. I'd wake up each day, I would see texts from her about her dealings at work. We had worked on different schedules. So when she was waking up, I was at home in the evening. And when I was waking up, she was getting out of work. It was exciting to see texts from her, but we continued to talk. Found out we had a very similar sense of humor. We were both coming from a situation where we were craving intimacy and an emotional connection. So I think that brought us even closer. And then our first date happened. We agreed to meet at a local restaurant. She arrived, and I remember her coming around the corner. I couldn't take my eyes off her. Just as beautiful as in the pictures I saw. She came over to me with a big smile and put her arms around me. I was instantly smitten. Felt that chemistry. I decided to take a little risk and lean in for a kiss right then and there, and she reciprocated. I I couldn't think anything else but loving that thought of that instant chemistry. We sat down, we held hands for almost the entire time, and enjoyed each other's presence for the entirety of the lunch. We ended up going to a bar nearby and then taking a walk on a local walking path nearby. It was really nice because where I took her was my hometown, and I was able to show her a little history of who I was, and I felt safe doing so. I felt very safe. I felt very comfortable, and to me, it was just an amazing feeling. The next day, we were texting like we had been through the part where we were trying to get to know ourselves. She told me she wanted to plan our next date. As luck would have it, I had a couple free hours at that point, so I floated the idea of her coming out to see me. She responded with an unambiguous, yes, I'd love to type of message. So I invited her over. And within an hour, she was at my place, and it just felt natural having her there. And we were enjoying the time. and the physical tension had started to rise, and we experienced a wonderful, intimate afternoon together. That resulted in her snuggling with me afterwards and allowing us to, hold each other in a very warm embrace. It was the most wonderful feeling I had experienced in some time. Um, I will never forget that. Unfortunately, my free time was coming to an end, and she also had prior engagements, so we said our goodbyes one more time. I asked her to text me when she got back just to make sure everything was okay. And even though it took her a little while, she did. And that's where I think things started to take a little bit of a turn. My favorite part of the connection with her, I mean, to sound cliche, was the entire thing. I mean, there wasn't one thing that scared me away from her. I liked that I was able to connect with her via her situation. I felt good that I was able to help her with some advice, sharing stories about what I've been through, the challenges, the roller coasters, and whatnot. And I also loved her sense of humor. I loved sharing clips of various comedians and getting to know her, her style of humor, her sense of humor, and how much that clicked with mine. And then, I know that I'm always going to cherish how she made me feel alive again, both through just being able to connect with someone and the physical connection we shared, the anticipation and the execution of it. It was that part I will never be able to forget. It was just so wonderful, so warming, so caring, and so physically satisfying as well. I don't think there's any other words for it. It was objectively amazing. Just being in her embrace made me feel safe. It made me feel wonderful. It made me feel like I'm a person. I'm alive. I've got, I've got worth. Things like that you don't forget. And um, I don't know much more I can say about that. It's just overall a wonderful feeling. When she got home from our intimate encounter, she had told me that her family kind of ambushed her. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but they had made her feel that going out was irresponsible when there was no reason for that to be. I mean, she had some free time as well and chose to spend it with me. The way they made her feel about it, from what she had told me, hit a raw nerve and just made her feel bad. But I tried to reassure her. The next day rolls around, and in the morning, she had texted me saying that she had thought about our time together and she had been spooked a little by it, as that the cuddling after our intimate encounter felt too loving, and perhaps that's not what she was looking for. I tried to reassure her at that point. I would have her set the pace to how we proceed forward. She then told me that I must feel really awful. I reassured her, saying that I understood. I was in her shoes at one point and went through the same thing where, I was getting ambushed and I was going through all these emotions. So I completely understood. That seemed to calm her down a little bit. Over the next couple days, though, we seemed to kind of return back to our normal mode and rate of conversation, although the texting was a little spottier. I didn't think much of it, but, as the weekend was approaching, I had asked her if she wanted to explore some towns near me that she noticed. She likes to visit antique shops, so I thought we could make a date out of it. And she had told me that she's in the process of selling her house, so she needed to work on clearing the house out because no one else was going to do it. So I told her I understood. And that weekend comes around and I don't hear anything at that point. I just text her to see how the move is going and nothing at that point. The whole weekend goes by and I don't hear anything. And again, I chalk that up to having to deal with that task of having to move out of a house. However, on the weekend, I just let things go by. But Monday rolls around, I text her good morning, no response. Tuesday comes around, I reach out saying I hope you're doing well. Again, just one response and nothing. I try another method. I reach out through Facebook on the third day. Just again, one attempt from me and no response from her. So as she started to not respond to my texts, at first I thought it was due to her busy schedule, her commitments, trying to get her house emptied, those kind of things. But as a couple days go into it, I'm starting to wonder. As I said before, I've been ghosted before, and it is never a good feeling. So, my mind starts to wander. I start to think, is she okay? Did something happen to her? On the day that I reached out to her via Facebook, I had started to feel a little down. So I had looked a little backwards and reached into some Stoic philosophies to kind of get my mind out of this rut. I started feeling a little inspired by some of these quotes. My favorite Stoic philosopher is Marcus Aurelius. And there was one particular quote that I had put on Facebook, and I'm assuming she saw that. And shortly thereafter, she unfriended me. Now, she didn't block me entirely, but she unfriended me. This, led to me thinking, okay, she's alive. She's got control over, certain aspects of social media, but it made me question things even further. It made me think, is she having a sort of mental breakdown where she just needs to get away from everything? Or, was she very spooked and possibly ghosting me at this point permanently? I don't know. As more days went on, various, scenarios are playing out in my head. And I go through these cycles of, okay, maybe this was meant to happen, to, sadness that, me, now wanting this to be over, or I even feel a little anger. I just don't share my body with everyone. This intimate encounter we had was very special to me, and it would be hurtful if you know, that was it. It was a one-time thing. I really, I'm 47 years old. I don't want to go through that anymore. You know, I don't have to fall quickly for someone, but I'm not going to, like I said, sleep around either. So, like I said, there's a huge mixture of emotions going around in my head. I also, along with all these thoughts that are going through my head, I'm trying to formulate a way, I'm debating with myself whether I should give her a month or a week or however, X amount of time to wait and possibly send another message. But then I'll start thinking, if she really did want to talk to me, then she would be reaching out. This is a very tough cycle, a cycle that I'm not unfamiliar with, but it's not any less painful to have to try to deal with all the stuff, the anxiety, the worrying, the potential anger. And that's the thing, it's potential. I don't know what she's going through, and I'm debating with myself with the thought of, is this thought justified? If she's going through something, is it just for me to be angry? And that's part of this whole whirlwind. I just don't know. I think that ghosting has a huge root in a desire to avoid conflict. Now, I know that having to deal with tough things is never pleasant, especially when it comes to breaking off a friendship or a romantic partnership. Putting myself in someone else's shoes, I certainly wouldn't want to have to A, watch someone get hurt, and B, deal with the aftermath. I've been on both ends of that. I've gotten broken up with. I've had to do some breaking up. And yeah, it's a very difficult thing to go through. It's not an easy thing to deal with, but in my experience, I have a lot of respect for those who have told me it was nice hanging out with you, but unfortunately, I don't feel anything. Yeah, I'll be upset for a very short time. I'll get over it. I'll move on. But with ghosting, it creates that anxiety, not knowing if there is a clean break there. From an outside perspective, it's easily to tell someone else, yeah, it's over, move on. But when you go through it yourself, it has a huge anxiety inducing effect. It causes the ghostee to question themselves. It causes them to analyze the situation a little too much or a lot too much. And it overall isn't a good thing. I imagine it's got to be a lot of relief for the ghoster if they can just get that off their chest and let the other person know, it's over, and give them closure. You can walk away knowing you've said your piece and move on with your life as well. So, in conclusion, I think that ghosting, although it's a defense mechanism, is not in the best interest of anyone. It causes pain, it causes anxiety, and I think we'd all be better off if we can avoid something like that.